one of the reasons I started doing these Wednesdays was partly to make myself paint regularly, but I think it's lovely to do stuff with other people. Painting can be quite isolating, and spending an hour just completely immersed in producing a painting is really good for the soul and for your mental well-being. So my sessions are not about becoming fantastic artists. Hopefully you will learn something along the way, probably from watching me make mistakes, but it's more about the process, enjoying the experience, taking pressure off yourself, playing with your paints, your brushes, your paper, and seeing what you get out of it at the end of the day. So do let me know if you're watching, because sometimes it feels a bit like I'm knobby no mates. So tonight we are doing this picture. So this is called Ashness Bridge in Cumbria, and got my paint stuck. And in actual fact, I want to show a little bit more of the water up here, because when you're really there, you can see more of the lake. When you take photographs, it pushes everything into the distance. So this is one I did before. I think this was my first one, which I wasn't particularly happy with. So I'm going to learn from some of my mistakes here. I want to make sure I leave some of the white area. This was a bit rubbish. I've spilt paint on it. Quite like my sky, quite like my mountains, quite like the flowers. So there's a couple of ways of approaching this. There is no line drawing this week because it doesn't need to be absolutely accurate. So you can use your free expression. Really all we're going to make sure we've got in is the bridge, where the water is, and the mountains, etc. But it doesn't really matter if you do your own thing and don't follow the picture at all. I'll bring that a bit more into shot in a minute. The colours we've got are the same that I've been using for the past few weeks. So we have a warm and a cool of each primary colour. So warm and cool yellow, a lemon and a cad yellow or something similar. I've got yellow ochre. I'm not that fond of yellow ochre, but it can give you some really good greens. I've got cobalt, ultramarine, cerulean or prussian or a turquoisey blue. It doesn't really matter too much. Thalo is a good blue to have. I may have one of those. And then we need some more pinks for our flowers. Now you can make the flowers any colour you want. And I did say today, so you asked me in school what the pink flowers were, and I thought they were valerian, but they're not. So I think that's heather, actually. Yes, it's heather, because we were up there in sort of September time. Valerian are the great big pink ones that you see up north. Then I've got 3 earth colours. So I've got a burnt umber, burnt sienna, and a raw umber, and that really should be enough to take us through the painting. I want to work quite quickly and try and keep it to an hour, because otherwise I think it's hard work for an evening. I've got some paper to test on my colours. I've got a Winsor & Newton palette here. I'm not sure if they're Cotman or Professional, probably Cotman, but I don't know for certain. And I am actually painting on Langton. This isn't 100% cotton, but it's mould made watercolour paper. It's all right, it's a reasonable quality. I've got it at a slight angle so that my paint will run down, which is what I want. I want to be able to have a bit of a bead of paint running. I'm going to move my palette into view, and I'm going to put my picture up here, so hopefully it's just slightly out of view, isn't it? But hopefully you've got the picture yourself off of the Google album. I have the normal culprits for my brushes. I have 3 rounds of various sizes. I have a couple of larger wash brushes. I have a fan brush. This is a new brush with a little tip on it, which will be quite good for doing branches. A couple of riggers, And I've got a flat brush, which will be quite good for doing the stones. Now I do have a pencil to draw my picture out, but I also have some watercolour pencils, which I thought might be useful. I've got a load of paper as well for drying my brushes on. So I've got a selection of watercolour pencils, which actually would mean I don't have to rub anything out. So I thought that might be quite useful. I appreciate they're not in the materials list, so you might not have any. So don't worry, just do it with pencil. It's going to be a very, very loose outline for this drawing as well. So we're going to start. Have I missed anything? I don't think so. Watercolours, 2 pots of water so that we can keep our brush clean. I have also got a couple of these bright pinks out. So I've got an ochre pink and a permanent rose. That's a sennelier for some of these flowers because they're really pretty. And I've got a white gouache in the end. Now I have got a little bit of soap and some masking fluid if I want to mask out my bridge. And I think I might do that actually. So first of all, I'm going to look at the proportions of where the things are. And this is quite useful if you're painting the same size as your photograph. It allows you to draw things quite accurately. So we're just going to sort of pencil in some of the key shapes so that we can get a feel for where they are on the paper. Probably want this one for my mountains. And do ask questions. Hi Pippa, thanks for joining. Nice to see you again. So these are my mountains going up here. And then I've got some trees coming down here. So they're just, you probably won't even be able to see these lines. I want my foliage to come down lower, so I've got more of a lake up here. That's that. There's a path. So down here, if this is my bridge, and this is very dark, this area around here. So just kind of map it into the best of your ability. And as I say, it's actually Ashness Bridge in Cumbria, but nobody else is going to know what it is or where it is or what it actually looks like. That's why I like doing landscapes. That bridge comes right over here. And you can make, if you want to make your flower areas bigger or your water bigger, you can do that. Now, if you're drawing with normal pencil, you might want to rub it out when you get to paint it, but these, because they're water soluble, should just kind of disappear into the background. So then I've got my trees coming in over here and over here, and then I've got a bit of a path. It's actually the road across here. And that is pretty much all I'm going to do for my outline. Okay, brilliant. Well, it's not brilliant, but can I get this in so you can see it? I don't think I can. I think next time I'll print a smaller version of it. Get rid of my pencils. I'm going to put some masking fluid on and hope that it dries by the time I get round to painting the area. Now, I mentioned a trick last time about protecting your brushes, didn't I? I'm just going to move these. So I've got an old brush out especially. for my masking fluid. And really, the only areas I want to protect is I want to kind of paint in my bridge a little bit. So I'm just going to protect some of my bridge. And I'm going to probably have to paint around it until it's dry, because it can take a little while. Okay. I'm going to put some in here, my flowers. The sun's not really coming from any particular direction in this. But if I protect some of this floral area with masking fluid, it means I can go back in with some clean pinks later and drop them on top. And I might just mask out a couple of rocks, bits of rock down here. What else have we got? Let's have a look. Yeah, just where some of the foliage is, some rocks. Getting a bit slap happy now. That's probably all I'm going to do, actually. Yeah, that's probably all I'm going to do. And what I didn't do was protect my brush with my soap, which was what I was telling you to do, and I didn't do it. Which is why it's good to use a cheap brush if you do it. Or keep a brush specifically for your masking fluid. Right, make sure the lid's on tight. I'm going to keep this at the bottom here. And I'm just going to do I'm going to bring it down to here so that I'm not touching any of the wet masking fluid to start with. So I want my big wash brush, plenty of water. The first thing I'm going to do is wet my sky. Not necessarily all of it, because I might want a bit of cloud in the middle. And then I'm going to get probably some cobalt. So a mid blue, a nice warmish blue. And I'm going to bring it a little bit so that it'll go behind some of those branches. Now I'm going to add in a teeny weeny little bit of burnt sienna to that, because that should give me a little bit of, I don't want it to go brown, but I want some darker clouds. I've got to work fast, a little bit more. Yeah, I think that will probably do. That's my sky. And if I want to soften some edges, go back in with a damp brush and I can just give myself some soft edges at the bottom. And that's it. And The hard thing is leaving it, isn't it? It's really hard to leave it alone. But what I'm going to do is drop in some green over in this area, but I want to start with something very light. So I'm going in with my lemon. I've got some lemon here actually, and a bit of sap green. I don't usually have greens in my mix, but lemon and your cerulean or your a cool blue will give you this sort of lemony mix. And of course, when it mixes with this blue, it's going to go a little bit darker. So I want to leave some space. And I can come back to that in a little while. Slightly change the colour. So it's the same colour, and I'm going to add in a bit of that cobalt to make it a slightly different green. Now, I want my water to go across here. So that's going up there. Change it up slightly. Try just dropping in a bit of other colours in here. So a little bit of blue. Taking that quite far up to the top. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a flat brush just to lift out, if I can, some of this lemon. So it's clean, but it's damp, because I want to be able to put in some branches a bit later. You might find your lemon stains a bit. I'm wiping my brush off, but can you see how if you've got good paper and good paints, you should be able to lift out some of this colour. That's it. Okay. Now I want to put in my water and mountains. I'm painting round stuff now, so I want a nice mauvey colour that's just going to come in here. So my mauvey colour, I'm going to stick with my cobalt because that's going to be sort of quite an important colour to keep the painting sort of harnessed together, so to speak. And then I'm going to use a little bit of maybe one of these pinks. Not sure if it's a quinacridone, don't think it's an alizarin, and it gives me this really nice purpley colour. Drop in something else, so maybe a little bit of burnt sienna into that, just to make it a little bit grayer. Actually, I've got a little bit of yellow ochre there, let's try that. It's more dense, it's actually opaque. There we are. That's it, I'm going to leave that. And a damp brush, I'm just going to pick up some of these dots of water so that they don't run back on me. Okay. That's okay so far. Now this is not dry yet, so I'm going to come down here and start on this area at the bottom and work my way back up to that blue once that has dried. So Pippa, have you painted since we saw you last week? Right, I'm going to do this bottom part, so I'm going to make this wet down here. So this is all the rocks. I think this bit's dry. And I'm going to let the colours mix on the paper. So I've got a little bit of this yellow ochre. I'm going to wash my brush off, and I'm going to make up a little bit more of that purpley colour that we had for the mountains. And if I add a little bit of this lemon into it, it should grey it down. There we are. So it gives us a bit of a two-tone, rocky kind of effect. Now there's a path up there. And I want to drop a little bit of blue into that as well, see what happens. And I'm going to leave it and just let it do its own thing. Okay. Well, that's not quite dry. I can see that's not quite dry. That's not quite dry. That's not quite dry. So I'm going to start over on this side. And we can practice a little bit of our floral stuff going on here. So I'm going to get one of the nice, really lovely bright pinks is opera pink. Sometimes you have to be a bit careful because some of these pinks, they call them fugitive, which means that they don't, they're not colour fast really well. But I'm just going to put a bit of a wash over here, not completely all the way. I'm going to put some green in there and let that kind of run just in some areas. And then I'm going to drop a little bit of purple or very dark. In fact, I've got a blue here, and that is a cool blue, maybe a phthalo, with one of your pinky reds. And that dropped in there should give you not too much. That's it. That's all I'm doing there. Just going to lift out this wet bit. This is actually a gummed pad. I didn't say that. If it wasn't, I would have it taped down, but it's actually a gummed pad. I want some more green dropped in down there. That's it. And I can go back and paint over this later. But there's some quite dark down there, so maybe I'll drop in something a bit darker at the bottom. So I'm adding some blue into my green. Yeah, I think these are Winsor & Newton Cotman because they just don't have as much pigment in them as the professional ones. Right, and I'll come back to that a bit later. Okay, where are we now? Getting there. I'm going to come back, just checking to see Oh, my dog's having a dream behind me. You might be able to hear him. I'm going to come back and do my water. Now I want it to be a different tone to these colours up here. So these are quite warm. So I want this to be more of a cool blue. So I've got this one here is probably a phthalo. So that's quite, I said I've got paper to test my colours on and I've not tested any. So that's a really nice bright blue. If I want to tone it down a little bit, I can add a tiny little bit of a yellowy. You see, that just takes the edge off it slightly. So I've got my, as you can see, my brush is not too wet, so I can actually get some sparkles on my water. There we are. And that will disappear into my foliage. Nice colour though. Just checking Pippa's answer. Oh, quite Saturday, get the paints out. Lovely. Time to yourself. Okay, so I'm going to actually put in some of this, what do you call it? Branches. So I'm kind of painting a bit all over the place, but that's for half the fun, isn't it? So I've got this yellow ochre. And I'm going to lift it and put it down again, some of this. There's one behind as well. And then I'm going to paint over this with leaves, so they, you know, a lot of them won't show. But the less control you have over your brush, the more natural it can end up looking. Right, and then they've got some that flick out at the side. I'm going to put a bit of purple in that as well to tone it down so I can get some slightly different tones. And I will be coming back in and doing some darker ones as well. Right, that will do there. My, look, they don't come, it doesn't come all the way down here, it should do. So make sure it comes down to my flowers. And I'm going to get quite a thick mix of burnt umber and just drop a little bit into some of the areas on the edge. Right. This is all run, but it doesn't really matter. I quite like the effect. Next, I'm going to put in some of, in fact, I think I might want to make this a little bit darker. A little bit darker. So I'm going back into that purple that I had, and I'm just going to put another wash on to darken it up. And behind it, I'm actually going to add a little bit of that blue for my sea. See, it's actually a lake. There we are. I just think that looks a bit better. Stands out a little bit more. Now, where are we going next? We've got lots and lots of foliage to do, haven't we? And there's quite a few different ways of doing this. But first off, I think I might do this down in the corner. This is the very, very darkest part down here. So I'm going to start by putting in a, ooh, have I got Payne's Grey? Yes, I have. It's not on your list, is it? So Payne's grey is not on your list, you can mix it, and this probably, if I've got proper artists watching, they'll say, no, that's not what you need. But to be honest, any dark blue and a brown will give you a dark grey colour. So I've got burnt umber there and ultramarine. And you should be able to get it quite dark. The thing is with this, you don't necessarily want the colour to be exactly right to start with. You know, we want to paint around some of these leaves and things. We want some texture, because you can put washes over to make it darker. And that came out there, look. Bit of negative painting, so it looks like you've got some leaves and things in there. That's cool. That brush is not ideal for doing washes, so now I want to do a wash over my bridge, and this is quite a nice way to do stones and rocks and things. So I'm going to, I've got a few colours on my palette, but I'm going to mix up a few more, so a little bit more of this blue. And I want something a little warmer, so I've got a bit of burnt sienna up here. I've got some yellow ochre. And what I'm going to do is put my brush in 3 colours all at the same time and just sweep it across where my bridge is. So a bit of yellow ochre, a bit of sienna, a bit of the blue, all on the brush at the same time. Don't rub it too much. Just pick it up on your brush. There we are. If you've got speckles left, leave them, that's fine. That'll go off there. Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's going to disappear. Again, I'd want to put a little bit of negative painting so that we're painting around some of the foliage. It's going to disappear into there. Okay, now back to something quite dark. If you've got Payne's grey, you can use it or mix up a little bit. And that, you've got a little bit of a rock coming out there. Again, try and cut it around these flowers. And I'm going to just put touches of this so it runs into some of these areas. Now it should dry lighter, so don't panic too much. And there's not so much detail at the back there. No idea what this is going to look like when it dries, but we shall see. Now, I'm going to do my flowers down here actually. It didn't go so well the first time, so let's try again with just a few areas. I'm not going to run into that black, I'm going to keep that away from it. Some of this pink. And then some green, but not too wet. So it's not running as much as the other side did because the paper was so wet it all ran. And then down here, that's where I want to drop in some very dark. So I'm going to go with a very dark blue onto my yellow. It's got a really vivid green, so I'm going to pick up a bit of that pink, and that should give me a very nice dark green. I'll tell you, this would be a completely different experience if I was using the professional quality paints. I think next week I need to do that. Right, that to me actually looks a little bit better than the other side. I quite like the way these colours are all merging together. I'm going to come back up to all of this now, and I'm going to come in with some fairly flat dark washes. The colour I've just used down here, because you've already got some colour underneath, so it does make it look a bit sort of more, a bit variegated. There we are. And something a bit more pigmented. So actually I'm going to go into this green with this blue. So if you keep reusing the piles of paint that you've got on your palette, try and leave some of that lemon poking through, you should find that the painting kind of hangs together. So I want to bring some of that all the way down here. And then I want some darker, denser colour. So I'm going to go back to my cobalt. Yeah, these are definitely Cotman because they're much harder to work with. And I haven't used my warm yellow yet. So I'm going to try and make quite a dark green there. And I just want some areas of darker in here. Try not to control my brush too much. Have a look at this. And I need some slightly different greens. So let's try that bright blue, mixing into that grey that I had. And again, the warmer yellow, so that's going to give me a different green again. I want that to look a little, what do I call it, darker. So I'm going in, I'm finding something dark. That's a very dark brown I've got there. I think it's probably burnt umber. It's quite a nice dark mix. Not thick enough, doesn't have enough pigment in it. So let's try this. So I've mixed in a bit of Payne's grey with cadmium. I'm going to use this cadmium because I think this is a professional one. Payne's grey, cadmium, that's a nice, yeah, that's better. Okay, touch some of the paper. Okay, less down the bottom because the foliage is going to be dense. There we are. And over here it needs to be darker, but I can go over that with another glaze. But it's taking shape slowly. Okay, I'm going to come down and do my water under here, and running out of mixing room. I'm going to go to my cobalt, which I used for the sky. And I want quite a light, that's too grey, because I've got dirty water. Let's try this, clean this brush off. And let's try this, test it. I want a fairly thin wash, that's probably better. Yeah, that's it. I don't want to do too much more than that. I'll let that dry and then I can go over it again if I want to. Okay. We've got the road over here. I haven't really left much for it. So that's my road. Then over here we've got more greenery. So I want to set that greenery back a little bit. So I want cooler colours. So I've got this lemon yellow. And I'm going into my cooler green. But that looks too, what's the word, vibrant. So how's this look? That's not bad, that's not bad. So let's put some of this in. Take my brush off, another slightly different colour. Drop in some areas where that's sort of a grey. Okay. We can warm it up a little bit, so we're quite near the foreground. So I'll put a little bit of yellow ochre in here as well, so it'll give me more of a browny kind of mix. It's not different enough from that one, so I'm going to come back and go in with my warmer yellow. Now this comes down here, but there's some of that nice lime green in there as well. So the lime green was my lemon and my cobalt. That's it. That's better. And we can start putting some more details in on our foliage as we go along. I'm going to just drop some colours in there to make it a little bit different. So I'm just using up some of the colours I've got left on here. I think I'm going to have to do this painting again another time with better paints and better paper, because this is not going according to plan. But that's all right, it's all right, it'll do. So we've got quite a bit of greenery down here as well. So back into my lime green. I'm just scrubbing it, so we've still got some little white areas there. And I've got my sap green. Let's see what happens if I add, oh, it's much too gearish. Let's add a bit more blue into this. Just touch some of that in down here. And something darker. So into a darker blue. And still that lemon. But if you see, that's still a bit of an unrealistic green, so I need to tone it down a little bit with another colour, which really should be a form of red. That's quite a good one. There we are. Yeah, that just makes it a little bit more natural. Okay. Right. I've got some florals down here as well, so I'm just going to clean my brush off. And a little bit of a slightly different pink. Just drop a little bit in here. That's it. That'll probably tone that down a bit. Now, I can't rub off my masking fluid till everything is dry around it. So I'm going to work over here for a little while longer, and I am going to use my thinnest rigger that I have, which I believe is number 0. And I'm going to put some darker marks in over here. So I need it to be fairly thick paint. And I don't want to control too much. There's some coming out of here. Oh. And I'm going to paint over these with some more leaves. So hopefully what I'm trying to do is this should come forward and that should push back, although this is very warm here. I might have to paint over some of that. So I'm going to use my little fan brush. So if you're watching this as a recording, do comment, do say if you like it, or give me a thumbs up, or tell me what you would and wouldn't like to see, because it's very difficult to know if people are liking it or not. Right, so moving my fan brush around. Can you see that the actual pigment's not very dense? And it's because I'm using student grade paints. Makes such a lot of difference. Buy the expensive ones if you can. That's better. I'm using, these are the professional ones up here. So it just gives you, you don't have to work so hard. You've got a lot more pigment in there. That's better. I can go even darker, I think. Take that right up to the top. Get away with that, I think. I want a different colour in there though. So I'm going to go with my warm yellow. I'll put a little bit of this in. A little bit of variation. Okay, now next, what do we want to do now? I think we might be all right to rub our masking fluid off in some areas. Not there. So I've just painted over that bit, so that was a bit silly. Right, let's see if this will come off. I'm going to use an actual eraser. Don't do it if your paper's not dry. Just watch and wait. You will damage your paper if it's not dry when you're rubbing it. Okay. Yeah, I've got away with taking my bridge off. Get away with that as well. That's mostly dry. That's a bit damp still down there, so I'm going to leave that. That I put a bit more paint on, so that's still a bit wet. Okay, so let's focus on our bridge. It's not completely white, so I'm going to put a very soft, thinking. Let me get rid of some of these colours on my palette. Let's clean it up. I'm going to check the time. The thing about colour mixing is if you mix 3 primaries, you get grey. If you mix more, you tend to get sludge. So trying to keep your colours a bit clean, and also if you're working with single pigments, you get much cleaner colours. So one of the things they do in cheaper brands, cheaper makes, cheaper ranges, is where you might have one pigment for something like a burnt sienna in a professional range. To save money on the pigment cost, they might make it out of 2 different pigments, and that means even if you mix that with another paint, another colour, you're still mixing more than 2 pigments together, so you get much sludgier colour mixes. Right, so where are we? Anyway, that's just by the by. So I want something soft to go across my wall. So I've got a little bit of this yellow ochre, but I really want it to be very pale. That's it. And down here. Now, I can drop in a little bit of that other colour. So I had that yellow ochre and that blue. That's making a little bit of a green, but that's okay. I think that's okay. I'm just going to drop it in just where we might have the bricks. Something a little bit warmer, something a little bit bluer, darker. That's better. Just touch that in different colours. I'll touch that along the bottom so that we've still got a bit of light at the top. Yeah. Okay. Ooh. good quality either. Never mind. Now, this should be dry down here. See, if I had recorded this and then published it as a live, I could have got halfway through and gone, oh, that's not working, I'll start again. But when you're actually doing it in real time, you don't have that luxury. Okay, got away with that. Okay. Let's get rid of all this. Okay, it's not looking too bad at the moment. So what are we going to do next? This needs to be much darker. I don't know what's happened here, but it looks like the paper's been ruined by the masking fluid. Never mind. Keep going. Onwards and upwards. Right, so I've got a little bit of my pink. I'm going to add in a little bit of that blue. It's going to give me like a real bright violet. Now, to calm that down, I want to add a little bit of its opposite, which is a yellow. So that's quite a nice dull mauvey colour. What was I going to use this for? There we are. I knew I was going to use it for something. It's more of a glaze than anything. And the path was the other thing I was thinking of, just here. So this looks like there's a bit of shadow. Good shadow colour. Poetic licence, artistic licence and all that. And it can also give me some texture down here. Little bits of green, I would imagine there would be down here too. Ooh, that's not right. What's that? Finger painting, you know me. Right, now, a little bit of green. Some of this will be brighter. And I need to darken this up. I need to make this come forward, so this all needs to be quite a bit darker in here. So, what time is it? We must be up to an hour. Yeah. Right. I've got my sap green, or you can mix it with your ultramarine and a yellow. And I want to do a bit of sort of negative painting. I want this to be darker in here. I want to leave some of the other stuff showing through. Okay. Even darker that needs to be. That's quite hard with these paints. So I've got a really, really dark green here. They don't run, that's the other thing. They don't run and move like really good quality paints do. They just sit around, and that is not what you want. So I've lost a lot of the bright luminosity in there now, which is disappointing, but never mind. I've got some pink. And more of this. Okay. Let's get a little bit more of my opera pink over here. Let's put a little bit in there. Oh dear, not going well. Got some of this dark green. Do a little bit of negative painting around here. That's better. That looks a bit more realistic. This needs to be much darker in here. So again, very, very dark. Looks a bit too samey. Well, I'm going to darken all this up and see what happens. But before I do that, I'm going to put another wash of blue on. So I had a nice clean cobalt, which I've made green now. So let's clean that up. Okay. This area here needs to be much darker. So whatever you can use to mix something really dark. So it might be an ultramarine and a burnt umber, works really well, or a raw umber. That'll give you kind of a Payne's grey sort of colour. Purple, if you've got a good purple, it would work well. I've got to see what that is under there. I want to paint around these again. And we're going to put some of these now. Top of my wall, I want to be able to differentiate. So some of these stones are on the top of this wall at the front. So let's make this look a bit more like a stone wall. everyone doing? Or do you think the thinking process is valuable? Good. Well, that is it, isn't it? Sometimes it's just good to hear what other people are. Actually, it's quite nice to know that we all struggle with the same things, I always think. Right, now over the back here again, we are looking at these little I should have left them white in hindsight, but there you go. I will do this again. I have done this a couple of times already, and the one I showed you, the big one, I didn't like as much as the initial one, so I might need to make that darker, quite a bit darker, so it shows out against the shows up against the bricks at the front. So I want to tone that down with sort of a grey colour. So I'm going back to making my purple that I made back here, and I'm going to put in a little bit of brown into that. So it's sort of a really warm, which is very similar to what I've got at the front, but I want to set it back. I don't know if it's going to work though. Well, I think it might do, and I'm going to put a little bit of blue in that. I don't know why, but just because I think it might. Set it back a little bit further. Yeah, I think that has helped a little bit. Yeah, okay. Now I'm going to take a little bit of that blue and put in some little ripples down here. Little swirly bits. I'm going to put a few rocks in, just so you can see it's water and there's movement in it. Okay, and then some dark rocks. There's quite a few rocks at the back actually. And I do always, don't forget, have a little bit of white available. So if I did want to highlight some of these rocks, I can. Let's have a look. So if I mix a tiny little bit of my white with my yellow ochre, I can literally just highlight a few of these and make them stand out a bit more. That's better, I think. Right, and then down here we've got some rocks, and under here. Now what happens down here, we've got some greenery. Wash my brush off, find a bit of green. Just general greenery. This is a bit, what's the word, nondescript, so let's get a little bit of a colour. Put a bit of texture in. A bit of scrubby. That's a little bit more. Okay, I think we're probably almost done. I might just, for fun, put something a little different in. So I might just put a few orange flowers in. Don't know why. I'm going to put some very dark green in there. Oh, these rubbish paints. Deary me. It's better, but not great, is it? Got some more green down there. Oh, how are we doing? I think probably, maybe not quite done, just a few more bits and pieces. So, it's very, very dark green. Kind of there, and I think we need some darker over here as well, actually, down in this corner. Behind that wall. I got a purple. I do like a bit of purple in a painting. Oh, that's a blue. Dioxazine purple. Yeah, it gives me a nice dark green there. There we are. I need to tone this side down, so I'm just going to put a wash over it. And I've got quite a dark, it's like a bluey green. But I want this to set back a little bit. That's better. Yeah, that's it, so it kind of fades away a little bit. How does that look? I'm going to look at it through my camera. And I think I'm going to call that done. So I'll leave it on for a little bit. I'm just going to have a look at your comments. Oh, so finding all your marks following the same direction. Oh, well, we're human, and we naturally do patterns, and we naturally try to keep things symmetrical. So it's actually quite a difficult thing to do. You have to make a conscious effort not to do it. So it's a challenge. Oh, you like the stones? Thank you. Well, gouache is always handy. And purple, you can see how purple can work well in a painting, particularly with greens. It's not my favourite, but I'm okay with it, I think, in the end. But I think what I will do for the next one is I will record it and upload it and then watch it live with you so I can answer questions in chat as we go along. But I really appreciate you joining me. Thank you so much. And if you have enjoyed it, do share it. I know you've subscribed. And and I'm going to keep doing them. So thank you ever so much for joining me. Take care. Bye. Thanks, Pippa.